Welcome to Now's Nonsense. This is a map showing which countries in the world use the metric system and which countries in the world use the imperial system. Yes, myself and my fellow Americans still use the imperial system, one of 3 countries in the world to do so. And after having lived in Germany for a few years, I do have to admit that the metric system is much more logical and makes a lot more sense. So why do us Americans still use the imperial system with funky measurements like inches and 12 inches in a foot and 5,280 feet in a mile?
How many feet are in a mile? 5,280 feet. You pick this ball up, you run every one of them.
And so on. Well, I looked it up and it's actually a little bit more complicated than I thought. So I try to digest this information. I'm giving it back to you in the most simple way I can. Let's give it a shot. So it all started, of course, with the British. The British used the imperial system, and the United States, as a former colony of the British, used the imperial system. Then when the United States gained independence in 1776, they had to make some big decisions on how they'd run the country. Big man Thomas Jefferson was the Secretary of State at the time, and he actually was a Francophile. And France had developed the metric system. But there was kind of a lot of turmoil in France at this time. French Revolution, rise and fall of Napoleon. And so we weren't really sure if the metric system was going to last. Plus, our main trading partner, Big Boy Britain, still used the imperial system. So they decided to use the imperial system. However, by the mid-1800s, France was a little bit more stable, and they were really pushing the metric system. So then in 1875, the United States was actually one of 17 countries to sign the Treaty of the Meter. But this came at the same time as the United States' huge industrial buildup and expansion into the West. A lot of infrastructure had been laid down and built using the imperial system. And so powerful industrialists did not want the United States to switch to metric, even though we'd signed the Treaty of the Meter, because they said it would be really complicated and expensive to switch over their equipment and infrastructure from the imperial system to the metric system. Cost too much money. Let's not do it. Around this time, the metric system was really taking off throughout the rest of the world. Check out this chart that shows what year each country adopted the metric system. Even Big Bro Britain converted to the metric system in 1965, which was kind of the main reason that we were staying with the imperial system in the first place. Britain did this with the intention of being able to do more trade with the European markets, because it just makes more sense. So then in 1971, United States Congress actually published a report titled A Metric America, a decision whose time has come, which recommended that the United States would finally go metric within the next 10 years. But by the time that this bill had reached the desk of the President Gerald Ford in 1975, the bill said that converting to metric was encouraged and voluntary, but not mandatory. Some companies actually did make the voluntary conversion to metric and had some success with it. It never really caught on. The United States saw that it cost Canada basically $1 billion to convert everything to metric, and so we're a little bit scared off. Even in 2016, a presidential candidate named Lincoln Chafee made this speech.
Earlier, I said, let's be bold. Here's a bold embrace of internationalism. Let's join the rest of the world and go metric.
Proposing that it was time to finally go metric, and he got laughed at. So, simply put, by the time that the metric system was really taking off, the United States had already established a lot of industry and infrastructure using the imperial system, didn't want to change it, didn't want to take the time or spend the money to change it. When there was finally a bill passed to change it, it ended up becoming voluntary, and people didn't really want to do it. And so that is why the United States is one of the few countries left in the world that still uses the imperial system, while most of the world uses the nice, clean metric system. Thank you for listening to my nonsense.